Ahí se ve.
Public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with provisions of this Act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Regular meetings of the Rutherford Board of Education will be broadcast without editing during a 2-hour segment as limited by Comcast time constraints on Tuesday evenings at 8 o'clock p.m. on Public Access Channel and the FiOS Channel 38. A video of the meeting can also be viewed on our website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link, clicking on Public Meetings, and then Videos. Any member of the public who wishes to view a DVD of the meeting may make that request in writing to the Board Secretary. So our first order of business is to approve the minutes from last month's meeting. Are there any comments or adjustments to the meetings or to the meeting minutes? So we're approving the regular meeting, the special meeting, and also the executive session on September 11th. Okay. Enter those into the roll. Now we are entering into the special presentations portion of the meeting. I'm going to ask Mr. Hurley to introduce our first presenter.
Thank you, and welcome to everyone. As you know, we have students throughout the district throughout the year. Have artwork that is hung up in the office of my office, superintendent, the Board of Ed office. And at the end of last school year, into the beginning of this school year, we had artwork from students from Pierpont School. Some of these students may be at Union actually right now as the calendar has returned to a new school year. But we want to recognize them, and their work is still hanging up in the office. So I'm pleased to introduce the supervisor of language arts, fine, practical, performing arts, Ms. Ursulisi, will be assisted with Ms. Librera, and recognizing our student artists.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you once again for letting us come. My name is Brian Ursulisi. Like Mr. Hurley said, I'm the supervisor of fine, practical, and performing arts, as well as English language arts. And tonight it is it's always exciting. I get to visit the board office a lot, or town hall, borough hall, whatever you want to call it. And upstairs is where a lot of this artwork is displayed. And it's just a nice way to recognize the excellent things that our kids are doing by giving them a true audience, not just the refrigerator in your house, which is important, and that's a good thing, hang it up on the fridge, but also to let everybody see the great things that our students are doing. So that being said, we have a few certificates we'd like to give out this evening, and I'll call you up, and they're in order, and we'll just recognize them, and forgive me if I'll do the best with the names that I can. Lucas Almeida. Clap for him. Peter Barnum. Irene Cho. Marina Fautas. Come on up. Congratulations. Caroline Gemelli. Jacqueline Gregory. Bianca Ingram. Molly Carroll. Laika Kachaktrian. Anella Lobello. And Lily Lorenz. Mia Olivo. Amelia Perlmutter. Ava Vaccarella. Riyashi Varia. And Natalie Barone. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ursulis, I think we may have had one other student who entered, I'm not
Did
sure.
we have someone come in who didn't get a chance to come up?
No?
She got it. Good.
She got it?
Good.
Just in
All right.
time.
Okay. And the younger brother who was dragged along.
The next, and again, we really appreciate the work of our teachers and students in producing this artwork. And if you're ever up in Borough Hall, come up to the top floor and you'll see year-round, whether it's from the high school, the kindergarten, the elementary school, there's artwork there year-round. The second presentation is the awarding of the REF grants. As you know, the Rutherford Education Foundation has worked tirelessly throughout the years to help raise funds, to help support programs in our schools, and help fund some programs that would not be in existence without their help. So annually, grants are awarded in the end of the previous year, last June. The board accepted the award from the REF, and then at our first meeting in September, we formally announced and recognized the teachers and staff members whose grants were accepted and honored by the REF. This past year, the REF has funded 23 individual grants totaling $62,380. Included in that was a nearly $5,000 contribution from the Casananti family. And Mrs. Casananti is with us tonight, and we want to recognize Mrs. Casananti and her family and thank her for her continuing support of the Rutherford School. So thank you, Mrs. Casananti. The president of the REF, Christina Cole, sent her best wishes and thanks, and she has here tonight representing the REF, Mr. Andrew Mikowski, who is here, will help with Ms. Librera in handing out the certificates to the grant winners. We'll do it right now. You want to call? Okay, that'd be good, because I made like Mr. Ursulis butcher a couple of names. You want to call? Yeah, now there's going to be one name you get to. Okay, you're going to wish you gave me that list back. She's in the back. She's laughing in the back. Okay. I'll come up. I'm first on the list.
Well, the first one on the list would be you.
Curriculum. See, that's why I was going to call him. I was going to. Before I go up to accept that one, I do want to say that the REF, we're very pleased that as a Board of Education, as a district, that we were able to get to the one-to-one initiative of Chromebooks 2 years ahead of schedule. And a big part of it has been over the last 3 years, the REF has helped us with grants, and this year, to help us get over the last hurdle, to get there a little sooner, contributed $30,000 to completing the goal of the Chromebook. So we really owe a big debt of gratitude to the REF for that. In my hand.
Oh, you already took it?
Oh, yeah. I want to make sure we got
it. Real World STEM Challenges, Jessica Saxon at Pierpont School. Gift Building building a boost. Bonnie Boyer. Women in STEM, Kara Kalu and Margaret Nastasi. Makerspace, Sherry Ann Bernenko from Union School. Team Robotics, Bill Helfenstein, Union School. Team Robotics Parts, Bill Helfenstein, Union School. Team Math Electricity with Little Bits, Matt Picaro, and Burku.
I'll just
Daniel Dear Possible. Was that the one?
No. I'll tell you, I'll take the list back.
Four, Wobble sir. Erica Fada from Deer Pond. Mindfulness for All, Adrienne Freudenberg from Lincoln School.
Probably.
Tuned into Learning, Ilona Shevchik from Washington School.
That was very good.
Heroes and Cool Kids, Billy Cunningham, Rutherford High School. Read Across Rutherford, Michael Strago and Margaret Nastasi, Rutherford High School. Kiln Materials for Art Electives, Alexis Kubek, Union School. Creative Writing Club, Nicole Muller, Pierpont. Breaking the Mold with Breakout, Megan Collins, Union School. Learning and Wellness in the Courtyard, Lourdes Benitez Osorio, Karen Trevelyan, and Paul Scuddy, Rutherford High School.
What's number 3?
Zella, Joan Marcy, Joan Carrion, Kirk Schweitzer, Union and Pierpont School. Spanish, here we go. Escuchando el mundo español, Sue Smith and Giselle Pacheco. See it, feel it, hear it, and learn it. Rachel Diaz and Ann Wetzel, Washington School. Science Online Subscription, Aaron Tiffner, Pierpont School. Publishing children's books, Melissa Dugard, Rutherford High School. Trophy Case, Jonathan Kinney, Rutherford High School.
Thank you very much, and thank the REF. And again, I want to just reiterate gratitude that I think everyone up here has, and the teachers and the students have, for the work of the REF, and also for the teachers and staff members who come up with some very creative programs to put in for grants. You know, I know it's hard to follow all of the titles and imagine what they all stand for, but they're in science and STEM and arts, and, you know, in music, in reading, in mathematics, in wellness. It's across the board, and it's a way to really enrich our already rich curriculum. So we thank everyone, and we thank the community for helping the REF achieve their goals. And I'll encourage everyone again to participate. There's a lot of good events that come up, and they're on our website. The REF advertises them. If you can participate in any or all the events and help fund some of these programs, it's really money well invested back into our students and our children. So I thank you. And again, thanks to the Mrs. Casanati and her family for continuing to partner with us here and with the REF in helping us reach some of these goals and these initiatives. So thank you, everyone.
On behalf of the board as well, we congratulate everyone who won an award tonight, and all the students whose artwork was recognized. I think this event is one of our favorite events over the course of the year, because we get to see not only, as Mr. Hurley said, this sort of generosity of the community kind of on display with all the creativity and the great ideas that are coming from a very talented team across the district. So this is a great event, and we thank you all for being here. And I know Kevin McLean, who's the board president, who's unfortunately traveling and couldn't be here tonight, was disappointed that he wasn't here to celebrate it as well. Thank you all for coming. I think we'll take a short break, 2-minute break, and then we'll resume the rest of the meeting.
I'm glad you're on it. So.
All right.
25 years is last thing. All right.
Okay, so we will get started again. We'll pick up with the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. A couple of items that are, one's in your agenda, the other was a attachment. Annually, well, actually twice a year, so it's not annually, I have to report the violence and vandalism report, as well as the HIB self-assessment. So for report period 2, because I already reported on report period 1, if you look at page 2 of the agenda, you'll see the violence reported was 2 district-wide, which is equal to what was in report period 1. Vandalism was 1, down by 1. Weapons stayed at 0. Substance abuse was 4 reported, with 2 in the first semester. HIB was up to 7, with 3 in the first. If you look at the combined report, though, you'll see that everything was down, with the exception of substance abuse, that was up by 2 for the year compared to last year. So we're down 7 to 4 in violence, stayed flat in vandalism. The weapons, thankfully, have been 0 across the board. Substance 6 this year, 4 last, and the HIB was 13. Those are confirmed HIBs, 13 down to 10. Okay. None of those numbers, we'd like everything to be 0, obviously. None of those numbers really raise tremendous alarm or concern, other than the fact you'd like it to be 0. But considering the number of students and the number of days in the school year, those are not a bad place to be. We'd like to get them down every year. Just as a heads up, we'll talk more about it when the first report comes in for this school year, but they're changing the state has changed the mechanism for reporting. They've added some categories, they've gotten a few out, they've combined the HIB and the violence and vandalism report into one report. So the report that I'll give you come January, February will be slightly different in terms of the categories, but still substantively same definitions of categories. Okay. Before I move on to the HIB, anything on that? Any questions? Okay. Annually, the schools have to do a self-assessment on HIB. They rate themselves on programs they run for both students and then also staff training and other types of training. They where information about harassment, intimidation, bullying is in the curriculum. How they work with personnel. There's all these different categories. How do we follow certain things about reporting? There's a whole matrix of that they have to self-assess. For some reason, the highest score you can get is a 78. That always throws people off. You know, we're used to 0 to 100 or 1 to 10. You know, the 78 figure it throws you off. So you see things like 70 or 66, and you wonder what that's reflective of. So our self-assessment by building for this year, the high school did a little better with 59, up from 52. Lincoln at 69, down a bit. Pierpont at 73, pretty much flat, as was Union, up a little bit. Washington, down a bit. The scores are really within range. These are just the administrators saying, how are we infusing different things into our program? And if you see by comparison, other scores in the area are all pretty much in the ballpark where we're at, which is in that 68 range. And we have gone up in the last 3 or 4 years from a 64. You know, the real proof, I guess, is that our HIB, our confirmed HIB, are down and have never been high. So the training and the curriculum, I think, is doing a good job in terms of that. What you do tonight, you'll see there's a resolution to approve this, because I have to then submit this. Well, actually, I don't. Ms. Hohen submits this. She's the HIB coordinator, to the State Department of Education with the board's approval, and then the state looks at our assessment to see if we missed anything. Do they see anything that maybe we overinflated, underinflated, or the like? And then in January, they'll send back a confirmation of our score, and then you'll once again see this. It'll be an identical, it always has been identical report again in January. Okay? So that's the annual self-assessment. Again, any questions about that? So later on, there'll be an item to approve it and accept it. The only other comment I'll make at this point has to do with the September 25th, next Monday night. We will do a presentation, and we said we were going to hold off on any great discussion about what we talked about the 11th until the 25th, but just a couple of quick items just so you know how it's going to sequence. I will give a brief history of what got us up to the Long-Term Strategic Planning Committee. Dr. Valechko will be there. She'll present probably a 7-slide presentation of her about 40-slide presentation that she did here at the board back in May, so that people again have an idea of why we responded by looking into certain items. Then I will use this slide that Mr. Chapin used presentation, but I'll be presenting it a little bit differently than he did. At the end of the presentation, we have set up a dedicated email address that Mr. Kelly and I will both be able to access, and we'll tell people that if they have an opportunity to speak that night, fine, but they can email any thoughts they have, pros, cons, questions, suggestions to that email address, and then obviously we'll be sharing that with the board as well, and give people also the opportunity to come to a few board meetings, which we'll be having in the interim to speak. So if you can, any of you could be in attendance on the 25th at 7 o'clock, I welcome you to be there. Mr. Met is going to be, people who watch this probably don't know why every now and then I go Mr. Met and point at the camera, but he's filming in the back. I don't have the Met game on back there, especially this year I don't have the Met game on. But Mr. Met will be recording it that night, and we will be posting it up on the web as well for anybody, board member or community member who can't attend. They'll be there to be seen. And it's in the auditorium. Okay, I'm doing a dress rehearsal more or less at 3:30 to invite faculty and staff who may want to hear it, but not want to come back at night, make the trip down. So it will serve a twofold purpose of being able to see, how the presentation goes, but also informing the faculty and staff of the plans. Okay, and that is it for me for tonight, except for maybe a few points in the agenda.
Okay. Excellent.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was one other thing. Just a look ahead. Today at the county meeting, school boards is redoing the evaluation for the superintendents, the chief school administration. They did through a survey that I think only 50% of schools that even use school boards primarily as a service have been using that evaluation tool because they feel it's a little antiquated and not quite aligned with some of the standards. So they're coming up with a new form, which will be optional. We'll see what the form is, but I have felt that the other evaluation really just focused on mainly on goals, and there's other things that I think could be included. So they're going to unveil it in October at the workshop. There'll be some meetings down there explaining it, and then we could decide how we want to proceed with that. Okay.
Thank you. So we will move on to the report of the student representative, Mr. Sullivan.
Glad to be back. It's nice to see you all again. To start off, one of the major changes that RHS experienced this year was our one-to-one ratio with Chromebooks. So that started off with students not knowing really how it would go. They were kind of upset they had to carry this around and didn't get to use their own laptop if they had the choice. But now that we're a week into school, I think they're realizing how convenient it actually is. Like in class, we use it every day. You're not taking a risk where teachers have to rent out the cart. So we have that. We got to take it home. So students who don't have laptops have that availability too. So, oh sorry, had spicy chicken for dinner.
But we don't give you a water bottle?
I'm not a big spicy guy. So, so we got to use it a ton in class, and it's awesome for the classroom. So, for sports too, we're off to a tremendous start. It's early in the season, so it's hard to tell, but we have a couple teams. I think volleyball, boys and girls cross country, and football are undefeated so far. So only a week into our season, but we have a lot of potential for this year. On a more serious note, on September 11th, RHS did not do a moment of silence, which I was a little offended by. I'm very patriotic, so that kind of didn't sit that well with me, but I brushed it off. And then as the week went on, we talked to more students, I talked to more students, and they mentioned it to me as well. So kind of brushed that off too. And then actually today, my mom told me that a lot of parents were concerned with that too. So my sister did say they didn't do it in Union School either. So I think that's something that should be changed definitely for the future, for obvious reasons, for parents, families who may have lost loved ones. So definitely that should be a change. That's the only complaint I have. Thank you.
It's good feedback. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we're up to the president's report. Kevin was, as I mentioned before, he was disappointed he couldn't be here tonight, mostly because tonight is Keith Chu's last meeting with us here as a trustee. And I know I speak for Kevin and myself, and I'm sure everyone here on the board when I say that this is it's a big loss for the board. Certainly understand your reasons for leaving at this point in time, and understand that this is a very demanding job, along with lots of demanding things throughout our personal and professional lives as well. So we certainly know and respect your decision. But for me, it's particularly bittersweet because Keith and I came in at the same time. Both came in about 4 years ago, and I would say that I've always been struck by Keith's ability and strength in listening to lots of different sides of an issue, and really being a patient and observant board member in hearing all sides of an issue, and providing thoughtful guidance in terms of informing board decisions, thoughtful guidance in terms of representing the community, and his own educational expertise professionally. So, I think I know I certainly will miss you as a board member, and I know others will as well. We're going to have an official motion later in the meeting, and I guess we'll have some opportunity for discussion at that point.
Or now.
Let's go ahead and have it now. I know I do want to hear from Joe as to what the process will be for filling the position. But before we do that, does anybody have any other comments that they might want to add about Keith's departure?
students and faculty, I'd like to thank Mr. Keith. Mr. Chu, you sat next to me for many years, and I've missed our chit-chats before and after meetings. He also was an asset in committee meetings. I will miss him, but if we're lucky, we can still catch him again interviewing colleagues on TV. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
I think you've been a wonderful asset to the board. The one night that you took over, and when Sally and Kevin couldn't be here, you were absolutely wonderful in that leadership position. So all your qualities will be missed. You've been a wonderful board member. And for my rides to Atlantic City.
If I could just add that Keith was, as I said, when I threw my hat in the ring for the board, people like Keith, Greg, and Steve motivated me to want to be here, friends and neighbors. So Keith, you will be very missed. I understand Avi's driving Diane. She's thank you.
If I could just add that I hope it's not because we changed your seat from Shelley that you're resigning.
I think it's because you made him read those 1,000-page of policies.
Well, I was going to bring that up because I think that Keith's management and willingness to, not to make a mammoth job that much more difficult to go through that policy review with patience, with with trust, and with being able to focus in on those areas that the board really had to look at. And we will miss you, and we thank you for your service. And I know that as a parent of children in the district, and that we're still going to be able to count on you and work with you in different capacities. And we look forward to doing that. So thank you again on behalf of the administration and the staff and the students. I don't think I think people know, but they take for granted sometimes the quality of the Board of Education that we have here. All you have to do sometimes is look in paper and read some things that go on in other towns to know the way this board operates and works together. And we certainly will. You're a big part of that, so we'll miss you.
Thank you so much.
I miss you.
Mr. Kelly, can you?
Yeah, once the board formally accepts his resignation, which presumably will be in a few minutes, tomorrow I'll put together a press release and I'll send it out to the newspaper to explain that we're looking for board candidates to complete his term. Keith's term expires next year anyway, so the board would be appointing somebody for 1 year and then would fall back into that 3-year cycle. So we'll post that on the website as well. And of course, if anybody wants to direct friends, neighbors to that process, please do. We will ask for letters of interest and resumes to be submitted to my office by Friday, October 13th, with an intention of the board interviewing candidates at the following meeting, which is Monday the 23rd. In the past, the board has come to a very quick decision, and who knows what the candidates will look like, but in fact, in the last few times this has happened, the board has been able to appoint somebody the same night as the interviews, and then I would call them the next day and say, you're in, it's official, next meeting, come in, get sworn in, and take your seat. So that's the way we'll handle it again. But I think that gives everybody, any interested candidates, plenty of time to submit relevant information.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. So with that, we will move on. We will open, I guess we don't need to open the meeting to the public. We can close the meeting to the public and move on to new business. So Mrs. Ahmed, can you give us the personnel report, please?
Surely. We did 1A, and there was no personnel report, really. You want me to move the...
Just move next.
Yeah. Just 1A and then 1. Resignation of Susan Lusky. 2. Mr. Joanne Chellis, resignation, lunch monitor. 3, to approve a teacher assistant at Pierpont. 4, part-time teacher assistant to approve at the Bulldog Academy. 5, approve substitute teacher. 6, approve level changes effective September 1st. 7, approve the following teachers for Title I after-school program. 8, to approve the following co-curricular assignments and stipends for 17-18. And 9, travel reimbursements.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Anyone have anything to add? Oh. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions? Discussion? Okay. Call the roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
And I presume you'll abstain on 1A?
Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to curriculum and instruction. Mrs. Jones?
There are 6 resolutions for under curriculum instruction for board consideration. 1, approval of nurses service plan. 2, approval of the code of conduct for each one of our 6 schools for the 2017-2018 year. 3, approval of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. 4, the approval of the list of out-of-district placements. 5, the approval for home instruction for 3 students. And 6, for the approval of the attached list for field trips. Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Hurley?
Yeah, just a few. The nursing service plan is an annual statement of assurance that just says that our nursing program is in line with code. It doesn't leave the office. It's something that if we ever were visited by monitors, which we haven't been for a while, they'd want to see that it's on file, but it doesn't get sent off to anybody. Code of conduct was there for your review. There were, I think, very few, if any, changes to previous years in terms of the code of conduct. And the bullying rights self-assessment is what I talked about at the beginning of the meeting. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Ms. Jones, can you move your
I
items?
move the following resolutions.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
Any questions? Discussion? Okay, let's call the roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Mr. Racine, can you please present finance?
There are 6 items for finance today. Number 1 is the approval of bills. Numbers 2 through 5 are the Secretary Treasurer's report and budget transfers for July and August. And number 6 is the Bergen County Special Services School District. Okay, contract.
Any questions or any further input on those?
No, I would just say on number 6, the Bergen County Special Services School District, that is to use the IDEA funds we've been granted for the non-public schools, St. Mary's High School and the Academy at St. Mary's. So they can now, those schools will be free to contact Bergen County Special Services for any needs they might have.
Okay.
I'd like to move items number 1 through 6.
Have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Racine. Oh, no, sorry. Mr. Mazzone? Can you call the roll?
Any questions?
Oh, any questions?
Okay. Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chu, do we have anything on policy?
No, at this point, I don't think we have. Mr. Hurley.
Yeah, I just want to mention, I did speak with Mr. Chu, well, last meeting, with Strauss Esme, we get much more frequent updates on policy revisions. And in fact, I have one sitting on my desk now. And majority of times, these are mandated revisions that because law has changed or the citation that gets referenced has changed. And Mr. Chu had agreed to this when in his role as chair. In some cases, I would like to just bring the mandated changes to the full board for the 2 readings rather than wait for a committee meeting, which then would slow down the process of the change. I mean, if it's mandated, we don't have a choice anyway, okay? Now, if it's mandated and it's something that could create concern in the community for some reason, then maybe we'd have a committee meeting so there's a little more preparation for that. That may happen once in a while, you know, with the policy. Optional changes or changes that we can have some, you know, regulation over, I think we'd go through the committee process. Because remember, it takes 2 readings, right, to get the change. So if we wait for a committee meeting, we could be waiting 3 months to get our policy in line, or 4 months to get our policy in line with the mandated change. So maybe with the first round of mandated changes, we'll see how that works. Everybody can look at it. We still have 2 board meetings, which often is a 2-month period to discuss it. And it would not slow that process down for things we have no choice on anyway. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Buildings and grounds?
We've had no meeting since then. I know in the superintendent's correspondence there was some mention of Bulldog Academy for the 25th. Is there any plan for any official opening ceremony?
We'll probably do something, but I'd rather wait until or at least a photo op with the kids or something. Right. I'd rather wait till everything is delivered and in place. We're going to get, as I informed you, we have a very benevolent member of the community who donated a lot of stuff to us, right? And we'll be formally accepting that probably at the next meeting. Some of that's coming in the week of the 20th. Some may be coming in a little later. So once it's pretty much all together, maybe late October, early November, we'll do some kind of a formal opening. But right now, we're pretty much on target to be open. There might be a kitchen cabinet area. We're waiting on a little bit of a back order there and a few other things, but I think we're in good shape for the 25th. We have a meeting I think Thursday with the architect and the contractor to see where we're at. So if there's any delay, I'll let you know, but we're hoping to be there on Monday. The roof project is completed, the finishing touches, and we did have a problem here at the high school, emergency problem with sewer line going out into the street with the 100 gym and the cottage, so the portable buildings, and we had to get emergency repair on that. And it turned out to be a little more extensive with the lines out into the street. So I think it was completed today. Right? Mr. Kelly, do we know that for a fact, or? No, I don't know that. No. Yeah, it was supposed to be done today. We didn't hear if it was, but if it's not today, it'll be done in short order. And they've been just doing a workaround with that part of the building. Okay, and that's it on building and grounds for that.
Thanks, Mr. Mazzone. Okay, moving into old business. Mrs. Jones, do we have a legislative update?
Not quite the legislative update. They don't have anything current on the JSBA website, but just the Bergen County School Boards Association is having their meeting on October 4th. I believe it's a Tuesday night, and it is at Maggio's at the River Mall. What is that?
Riverside Square.
Thank you. It's a great meeting. This time they'll be talking about the delegates assembly. That's something that I attend twice a year, but anybody could do it as an alternate could go if they so wish. But that has to do with changes that we can make, and then lobbyists take it to the New Jersey Assembly and the senators. So that's something that they will be discussing, and that is good. And I did send you a reminder that we have the board member self-evaluation, which is due the 23rd of October. Now, you were talking about the superintendent's one. This one I think you'll find is easier. You've all done it. I don't know if Dennis did it before, but it's simple. It's not that difficult, and it is due the 23rd. And Matt Lee probably will not come with that,
no.
but he'll send the results to either Kevin or to you, Jeff.
Yep.
Okay, and those are the just two reminders I'd like to give you.
Thank you. We appreciate the reminders.
Thank
I know
you.
I appreciate the reminders.
Some other me.
Yes. When Mr. Hurley mentioned that other districts weren't filling out the survey to the same extent that we've been filling it out. I think maybe part of that is because they don't have a Diane Jones on their board reminding everybody as persistently as you do. So thank you. Okay, so I think we can skip the next open to the public since we don't have any members of the public here tonight any longer. And so unless there's anything else, I think we're ready to, do we need
Nope.
to have an, okay, no need for an executive session. So I think we just need a motion to adjourn.
Giant game, right? Well, this makes up for the 3.5-hour meeting we had last Monday. Right? Yeah.
Let me repeat, we only need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Hearing no objection. Done. We're done.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Keith.